is South African education going down the drain?
You're now tuned into LWC Radio Off the Record.
Let's go. Well, welcome to LWC Radio, where we're keeping topics that are fresh, relevant, and real. And today we are sitting with myself, Newton, and Mac, my
Hello,
co-host.
Newton.
Welcome, Mac. It's
Thank
good
you,
to have
Newton.
you again.
It's good to have you too.
And our guest, Pastor Wayne
Yeah.
Scott. Welcome, Pastor Wayne. So
Thank
good to
you.
have you. And before you say anything, I'm just going to give a quick bio on Pastor Wayne because he deserves it. And Pastor Wayne, for those of you who don't know, Pastor Wayne is a pastor at Living Word Church. And if you haven't guessed, we are part of Living Word Church. Although I've got a timeout shirt,
Yes.
Mac's got a Living Word Church.
Yeah.
Pastor Wayne's wearing his Living Word Church shirt, so that's good. And we're blessed to have him
Yes, we are.
on the team, and he adds a lot of wisdom and guidance in leading people.
Thanks.
And Pastor Wayne has been in ministry and Christian education for over 40 years.
Yeah. That's a lot of years.
I feel a bit intimidated.
That's
actually
older
sitting
than
here.
I. That's older than me.
Yes.
And a bit of training of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Pastor Wayne has been a principal, he's been a trainer and a lecturer, and is currently the regional manager for AE, Accelerated Education Enterprises in South Africa.
Yeah.
He's a family guy.
Yeah.
He's got
Yeah.
6 grandchildren.
Not like the cartoons though, eh?
Yeah, not like the cartoon family
Not
guy.
like the
Not
cartoons.
But
like
6
He's a family
grandchildren,
guy.
Sure.
and I think he's quite proud to say that his own son is a principal of a school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yes,
can
wow.
say that. So that's quite
That
a
is true.
repertoire of experience,
Yeah.
and probably the best person to be speaking about today's subject.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
Thank you.
I'm excited for today's today's
I'm also.
episode. I hope you all passed away.
You're in the hot chair today.
Yeah, I feel it's quite hot today.
Yeah, you got the red shirt. For that
Yeah,
as well.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it was actually a white shirt. It's going red.
Well, at least the fire's on you, not on me.
Yeah.
So we excited, and we. I just want to speak of a quote from Nelson Mandela,
Okay.
where he quoted, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world."
True.
And when I read that, I thought, sure, that is quite a cool statement.
Yeah, very
And
much.
but speaking of education, you know, I know Pastor Wayne, you
Yeah.
actually recently got coronavirus,
Yes,
and
December. Yeah.
thank goodness that you are fine and you
Thank you, man.
healthy.
Yeah.
Are you recovering
Yeah,
well?
going for it, yeah. A little bit of my hair falling out, so. But other than that, but that could be from the grandchildren.
But that's just
Yeah,
wisdom
yeah.
though. That's
I'm
just
blaming
from
it
the
on
wisdom.
COVID, eh?
That's from the wisdom.
I think
huh?
they blame
Yeah.
everything on COVID.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it's
You
my
know.
hair and my weight is all COVID related.
Well, that's what I want to speak to you about
Yeah.
a little bit today. Is say, well, how has the virus, do you think, affected our education system?
Sure.
I would like to
Good
show a quick image that I found, and we got it on the screen here at the back. I don't know if you guys can see. Whoa, let's go there.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank question: who killed Goliath? And this is some guy that wrote the answer. Is instead of writing David, he wrote COVID.
COVID.
See me after the class, Mrs. M. I thought that was quite relevant for
Yeah,
today's
for
time.
sure.
I'm glad it's not Mr. M.
Yeah,
It would have been
Mr.
me.
Macker. Yeah.
Mr. M. Yeah, so I thought that's quite interesting to
Yeah.
see how
very true.
how our kids' minds changed
Yeah.
since this virus, and
Yeah.
how's it impacted maybe the education system.
I think so,
Um, Have you got anything that you feel that you think it's
think
has
so.
it impacted coronavirus
in a
impacted
big
the
way.
educational
I think one
system?
I think one of the biggest areas of impact is education. You know, it's
Yeah.
impacted business, as we know, and
Yeah.
well, it's impacted everywhere. But I think education has been impacted amazingly because of the fact that people are seeing a different way of educating. You know, before it was everybody gets in a class, you all sit in front, or the teachers in front, and everybody just carries on, you know,
Yeah.
lockstep, and you just mince
Yeah.
everybody out.
Yeah.
Now people have had to think outside the box and say, well, look, we need to reimagine or restructure education. And I think.
But do you think coronavirus is make education for the worse or for the better?
You know, personally, there's two sides to every story. I think that in the worst is that the children can't really socialize like they used to, because
Yeah.
that is what growing up, playing on the playground, socializing, having your friends. That's the negative side.
Yeah.
But the positive side, it's made educators look at education a little bit differently and to say, listen, what else can we think outside the box?
That's
If
awesome.
we don't have everybody there, what are we going to, it might thrust education into a new way of online, like online learning and distance learning. And,
Sure.
maybe homeschool has got a place or distance school's got a place.
But Pastor Wayne, don't you think with the change that you're talking about, like you were talking about homeschool, right? As a parent, because now I'm having to look after my own kids because of COVID, they're at home. Doesn't that also now force me to change my schedule? And okay, I know some of our work has been impacted, but now doesn't that also force me to have to change the way of doing things or the way I work, because now my kids I've got to now look after them instead of sending them to school. So is that necessarily a good thing or a bad thing? Because I think a lot of people have been, from what I've seen, most of them might have been impacted negatively, especially the parents, because now they're having to look after their own children. They're having to educate their own children. They're having to, because before they used to cringe at the idea of having to do the homework for the children. And now the child is at home. You've got to help. And now you got work on the side. So would you say it's necessary a positive change in total, or is there some kind of negative aspects that has impacted, especially the parents, with regard to how COVID has changed the whole way we do education?
I think that that's true. Homeschooling, not everybody can do homeschooling. I think most cases, both parents work, most families, so that's already a negative impact.
And then the homes that have single parents?
And then homes that have single parents can't do that as well. But I think there might be a shift towards not necessarily homeschooling per se, because not everybody can do that, but more online learning. Okay. So whereas everybody used to be able to, you have to go to a school, you have to be in touch, physical learning. Yeah. Now they're bringing more in a blended learning approach. So you can actually do it online. Yeah. And then it's not so much, on the parent. And I think that it might open up for more smaller type schools. We've got these masses of schools of 1,000, 2,000.
More individualized.
More individualized. And I think that's why we need to go over to more of a personalized system of instruction.
I think it's also works on how you, like the age of student. Because, for example, I've got a young boy of 15 months. He's not even going to school. And that had a huge impact on how Caitlin and I did things. How it affected her work. She had to work throughout the day without now looking after the young one. Now the nursery school's closed, so it had quite an impact on how we did things at home. It affected us as a family, We had to work around that. So I think it had, especially from that age all the way up, now you get your grade 12s that are stressing, okay, how do they finish school? They don't have the teacher at home giving them help. Yeah. I think it's been quite a journey in terms of, as you say, what this corona, but it's also, as you say, it's opened up something positive,
some opportunities,
in different opportunities and how schooling is brought forward, how the schools are thinking, changing it to make it different. And I think that's worldwide. This coronavirus has made people think differently, start to change your structures, make new things, and for the better.
I think so, because like if you take professional teachers, you get the best schools, the richest schools can get the best teachers. Yeah. Now with the online learning system, you can actually have those teachers teaching people hundreds of people, thousands of people. They're getting access now to the best teachers. Yeah. So we could actually open this thing up that even the disadvantaged or the underprivileged can get access to see a very good math teacher and actually get math at a very top level,
now,
or science
with
or English.
That, Pastor, when the challenge of online, what about data? Because the issue will always be data. You're talking about the disadvantage now. What if I cannot afford data? Because a lot of the free data nowadays that you get is mostly for your socializing platforms. But I don't see any major network offering like free data to say, okay, when you go online. And I don't know if the government even has that kind of initiative. So what do I then? Isn't my child being disadvantaged because now I don't have data and I've got to be home and there's now online learning? How do we then how do we help those kids? Because now my child is sitting at home, I can't get data, and my work schedule doesn't always allow me to sit and let my child use my phone, for example. So how do we bridge that gap?
People are struggling to get their kids into school. Now we're talking South African education.
Yes.
We're now in a in a situation where
Yeah.
you can't get your kid into school.
Yeah.
You can't. There's not enough teachers. The facilities are not good enough. The principals are under pressure because they're not getting support.
Yes, no, definitely.
And so, Pastor Wayne, I want to find out: is
Yeah.
South African education going down the drain? Are we in a position where things are just not working?
It's a good question. You know, I think that there's segments of South African education that is doing well. Again, it's the segments that have got money. I think there's other segments that haven't. They are going sort of down the drain because of the situation. But I think South Africa is a very diverse country, and also there's a lot of poverty in the country as well. And that's what makes it very difficult to balance the books and to say, listen, how do we get education to the masses? And not only just education, but quality education, you know. And as you were saying with the quote by Nelson Mandela, that education is a powerful weapon to change the world. And I believe that is true, but then it's how you use that weapon. And how do you get the weapon, if you want to call it that, of education to the right people? And I think that's our biggest, that's the complexity of our countries. We need to get education to the masses, because the masses will change the country. Not the chosen, frozen, or the few, you know? Because that's fine. There will be those times, but I think that's important. I think we need to have a way that, and I think this online learning and this type of will diversify and open it up to more opportunity.
Okay,
like Mac was saying, we need data.
As a parent, like with the 15-year-old.
Okay.
15-month-year-old.
15 months.
You can see I've got a 15-month and I'm not getting sleep. It's starting
but they grow
to hit
quick
me.
also. So.
But I'm saying as a young dad, I've got a 15-month-old. I'm now looking at this situation and saying, how is this going to affect Nathan, my boy? How is this going to, should I be worried? Should I be saying, is he still going to be able to get education in South Africa? And how do I look at it as a parent of a young child like my son?
Yeah, I think he's going to have more opportunity, interesting enough, going forward.
In South Africa?
In South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, because look, in South Africa, we also have to play catch up. And I think that the country has now also got shocked, like every country in the world. Some countries were already advanced in online learning and data. But what's nice is that South Africa it's given us a bit of a shock. And I must tell you honestly, being in education all the years, one of the things is, to be honest, and off the record, I suppose, but it is actually a fact that there's been a real a lid on South African education. There's only certain ways to educate.
Yes.
You know that they've got no policy for online learning. They are busy only now trying to get a policy out because they're seeing this online learning is going somewhere where they can't
is
stop.
It that
control.
South Africa is behind in the education sector in terms of
online? Yeah.
Our
we're
infrastructure.
behind.
What about
infrastructure like Mac?
Infrastructure.
Is our infrastructure not able to cope with the way that the education is moving, you think?
I don't think we have. Exactly like you're saying. At the infrastructure at certain places is fine. You know, there's money involved in that. But where the real need is, the infrastructure has to speed up. I think a lot of money has to be plowed into that segment and sector. And also the other thing is, if they can diversify and let's say ease up the control, but have policies, but ease up the control on big schools, because all we're trying to do is pump masses of children into these schools. They're overcrowded.
So what is the ratio for public education? What is the ratio from student to teacher, and is it higher than it should be?
Yeah, well, it is.
And is the fact off the record, is the fact that they're giving us the correct fact?
I don't know. I think, exactly.
Because
what is fact and what is fiction?
You're reading in the news and they're saying, they're saying that the ratio is 29-1.
No way.
You don't think
but
so?
I don't know if it is like that.
The African Council of Educators, registered teachers. You might have a lot of teachers that are not necessarily registered, and then it gives it a better ratio. But if you really take strictly registered, qualified teachers, there was at one stage there was talks of even like something like 400 to 1 proper qualified teacher.
But
know?
Now,
but especially specialized. I mean, you can have like let's say 1 million if like your foundation phase teachers.
But Pastor Wayne, even
But it doesn't
with
mean that
yeah.
they're helping out at high school level.
The question
Yeah.
I want to ask, Pastor Wayne, is with that, as you're talking about the ratio of teachers to student, what kind of education or value is my child getting when you have a teacher that's, let's say, there's one teacher and there's 80 students? I mean, what kind of input are you really giving? Because for a child, that's too distracting to have 80 children in one class. Or let's say even they got 40 and they just split them up. So how do you even know that the child is getting the value in terms of focusing on what the teacher's saying? And how does the teacher even keep track of that many students in a class and still give anything of value? So this is where I want to know now. With the Christian school, is it better that we move in that direction because it's more individualized?
Okay, that's a very good point.
But when you say Christian school, what do you mean?
What
because
you see, that's the
you
thing.
get a lot of different Christian schools in South Africa.
Methodologies.
In terms of their foundation, the foundation or the core that's at their curriculum.
Yeah.
For me, I would define Christian school as people whose the core of their foundation is the Bible.
Yes.
Which I know in ACE they do that. Because other schools, they are Christian, but it's mostly we'll teach a word of God.
Wait,
or
Mac,
so
what is
we'll have
ACE?
assembly. ACE is Accelerated Christian Education. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's now changed to AEE. So it's a system like that.
Okay.
So it's actually a program. So Accelerated Christian Education is a program.
Yeah.
It's an educational program. But one of the words that we also use is it's personalized system of instruction. So each learner is on their own track. They are also learning at their own level, at their own speed. They accelerate. That's where the word acceleration comes. They accelerate or decelerate depending on their need and their ability. So we find some children they can eat maths for breakfast. Instead of they have alphabet soup for breakfast and paint by numbers all the time. So what we're saying is that we need to have more individualized education. Okay. Like you're saying, with 80 students in a class, there's no way, even 40. There's no way that you can have individualized education. So
as a parent,
the nice thing, is ACE has got that individualized system and it's modularized. So you don't
as a
lose
parent,
out.
do I now send my kids to a Christian school because I'm also a Christian, or do you think it's necessary or not necessary?
Well, look, the thing is, like as Newton was saying, he's got the 15-year-old baby. And because these children, they grow up, so the 15 months is just about like a 15-year-old now. Yeah. And now they use a computer already and they can swipe and watch. It is, it's crazy stuff.
But is my children going to get better value in a Christian school than in a government school? Well, in regard to, because you spoke now about the way they teach, right? It's like you've got these pillars where you're focusing on the academics and then you also focusing on this. So
exactly, you need to focus.
Is there any way that I can't get that balance in a government school? Do I have to send my children to a Christian school?
Remember that South Africa is a secular country. So technically every government school is a secular institution.
Okay.
Meaning that they don't punt any one religion. It's basically secularized, as they say. Yeah. But one of the privileges we've got in our country still is that you can still have religious schools. I call it religious schools because you've got Muslim schools, Jewish schools,
that's true.
Which is a great advantage in our constitution. Yeah. But the thing is, we have to understand that we are also a three-part man. So if I go to a secular school or any other school that's not punting the religious side or the Christian side in our case, then I'm really just sending my child to get educated in academics. Yeah. And also educated in physical, like rugby, soccer, etc. But if you send them to a biblical, sound biblically based school, they will also bring in that spiritual factor, and they will lighten up or liven up or at least educate your spiritual man. So you're going to have a child that comes out that's educated in all parts.
So you're talking about, so we're talking about the ACE system in a sense of the curriculum, the system that's, it's an international system. Yes. It's all over the world. And it's a system you're very familiar with, Pastor Wayne. So you were bringing in the personalized, it's what you're calling
personalized system of instruction.
Personalized, what in a sense of does that give me as a parent? And how does that benefit the child? And then also, obviously, it's a Christian system. So what sort of Christian values do they get that they're not going to get in a public school? Because technically, I don't really need to send my child to a Christian school to become a Christian.
No, not necessary. No. But the interesting thing is, if you take the amount of time
Yeah.
that a child spends outside of your hands. At school, for example, they spending 6 to 7 hours a day
Okay.
in that environment. Now, if the
Big
environment,
chunk of their life.
it's a
Yeah.
big
It's a
chunk
big
of their life.
chunk of their
So now
day.
you get home, you're in a rush, as you say, you're both
Yeah.
working. You say, hi, how's it going? And sign the homework book
Okay.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're on your way. Then the church gets hold of
Yeah.
them for 1 hour, children's church. So it's okay, well, hopefully they can fix them up. So I think the main
On a
thing
Sunday.
is, and I think it's like, what are you feeding?
What
Like,
about
how much
affordability?
food? The?
Affordability, because a lot of the Christian schools are private schools.
Yes,
And
that's
a lot
right,
of the
yeah.
big points with me sending my child to a public school is because it's affordable. So how do I bridge the gap between I want my child to be taught values and then still be able to afford that?
Look, that most of our Christian schools are they are private.
Yeah.
But I must say, in the private sector, within that private sector, they are reasonably priced. I mean, we've seen at our own school in Alberton and the one in Modderfontein that we are over, we find that our prices are still very affordable, which is
Okay.
important.
And in terms of
Yeah.
education on the ACE side, in terms of what ACE is giving, what sort of standard, what sort of quality in terms of ACE
Well,
system,
Yeah.
being a Christian-based
Yeah.
system,
Yes.
what sort of quality?
Well, it's internationally benchmarked. If you have a look at the type of the work that's in there, the curriculum,
Yeah.
and also what's nice is the curriculum is not changing every 5 minutes. You know,
Okay.
now we chase outcomes based. Then we on CAPS curriculum, and it's all that type of thing. Which we are CAPS aligned, but the foundation is very sound.
Yeah.
The academics is very sound, and also being in this for many years, we can see that our graduates. I always say that if you want to measure anything, you just measure the outcome.
The outcome,
You
yeah.
don't
Okay.
actually. The process
is in
the proof of the pudding.
Yeah, the proof of the
in the
pudding is in
pudding.
the eating.
That's
So
and I mean, if I look at the amount of graduates and students that have come out of our schools,
Yeah.
and also schools nationwide, I mean, the quality is amazing, especially academic quality.
Yeah.
The guys are not like, can't add 1 + 1.
Yeah.
But again, we must also understand that each child is an individual and they all got different strengths. So to go and measure somebody that wanted to become a motor mechanic and now you're trying to measure them on a science experiment, you know what's going to happen.
yeah.
It's going to smoke and fire.
So is that where the ACE benefits an individual?
Yes, because then that individual can progress at their own,
Okay.
you can at their own speed and also at their own level of intellect where they are
Yeah.
at. And also remember, emotional maturity is very important as well.
Yeah.
Because we always say IQ, but there is that emotional factor that you can only perform as strong as where your emotions are. And you'll find that many children only mature a bit later and then they start performing. So I think that look, overall, I think academics is what we measure most of the learners with. Unfortunately, there are some that are brilliant with sports, brilliant with arts. And I think that the diversity in education is a concern.
Does our school cater for that though, Pastor Wayne? In terms of, like you said,
What do you mean
we're
our school?
as in,
Now you're talking very,
yeah.
very specific. Who's
yeah.
our school?
Yeah, our school. So, should I mention where I'm
ACE?
from? Yeah. Well, and when I mean our school, I'm talking in terms of Christian education now.
I think for all the
Because
viewers at home,
Yeah.
Mac is a teacher,
I'm an HOD.
HOD,
Yeah,
and
head
a
of
teacher.
department for the foundation phase. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the educational field
Yes.
and goes to an ACE school, and
Cool.
that's why we're talking about ACE
ACE school.
specifically,
Yeah.
Alberton Christian Academy.
Oh.
So I'm actually
Yeah.
way here, but
Yeah.
educational
Yeah.
people.
So the question I'm asking now, as a parent, right? Like as you're saying, let's say I have a child that's not specifically academic, but how, is the system catering for those that are not academic and such? And say my child is good in artwork, like
Yes,
she's
yes.
very good in design, but
Yes.
give her a maths book and she's completely confused.
Look,
But give her a drawing,
Yeah.
coloring pen. Man, she's phenomenal. She wants to be an art designer, fashion designer
Yeah.
one day. And I cannot for the life of me fathom why maths is just not a.
no, now you know
Because I'm
why.
thinking, but don't you know? Yeah. So, and sometimes she feels frustrated. The other day she tells me, but this first time I'm scared for my maths because it's getting harder. But I'm like, you put a paper in front of her, she doesn't think twice. She just draws you anything. And so I thought,
That's it.
but now how's this system catering for my child in the long run in terms of when she's done? Because all I see is she's now thinking less of herself because she's worried about the maths.
Yeah, good point. What do you mention?
So my question is, are we
Look, I think
catering for that?
Yeah, we are. You know, there are subjects that they can do in art.
Yeah.
But I think that the nice thing about the individualized education and the self-paced education is that they don't have to sit there and be finished with their maths on Friday.
Okay.
You know? They can take a little bit longer in maths. And also they got their subject choices. Well, look, in a summary, the AC system, for those that, just in a nutshell, it's accelerated Christian education.
Yeah.
So the accelerated part is, I like to call it as individualized. It's a very individualized system. So it's actually a personalized system of instruction, which is individualized. Each student will have their own modules.
Yeah.
They will pace themselves at their own speed, depending on their emotional maturity and
the difference between that and the public school would be
you're all together.
The public school, you're in a class with a whole lot of kids and you go according to what the teacher.
That's
so it's a bit lockstep.
It's all lockstep.
Whereas AC is not lockstep.
No.
Okay.
So you can have somebody that's struggling a little bit on X plus X.
Yeah.
So they can take a week on that, and another person X plus X, it hits them and they go through it.
Yeah.
The nice thing about ACE is it's modularized and it's self-learning. And then we've got facilitators that will help them, which we call supervisors. But when they get to the end of those concepts in a module, which is a PACE, a packet of Christian accelerated education, that's what they say, PACE. Then, but the nice thing in that in that packet is that it's goals. It gives you outcomes. It gives you your concepts that you're going to learn, and it gives you character traits, Christian character traits, and a Bible verse, which is your golden thread right through.
Yeah.
So you're getting the spiritual man educated in that same book.
Yeah.
You get your intellectual man educated in that same book, and you get your emotional person also educated in that same book. So that's what's wonderful. It's actually a 3-part educational system in one book.
Yeah.
Then there's 3 tests that are in the book, which you call checkups. Eventually there's a self-test which checks all the work. That's continuous assessment. And then at the end of that pace, the student must get 90% because they mastery. We work on mastery. So you can't just say, let's get 30.
So the quality
30%.
in terms of your pass rate is very
pass
high.
mark,
Pass
it's
mark
very
is
high because you're mastering that concept. So you might take 2 weeks to do it, and somebody else can master it in a week. But you have to master it before you move on.
So in other words, you'll
you don't
never
have
move on with learning gaps in between. Yeah, because
that's your biggest thing.
Yeah, because I know once they do a PACE test, they conference them the next day because in case I got 1 or 2 questions wrong, so I'll always know what was it before I move on.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pastor, and another benefit I think of ACE is the ratio. Is that like a set in stone for an ACE system, like your student
sort
to
of
teacher ratio?
It's not really set in stone, but it actually works itself out like that because to run the system, you've got your academic side and you've got your administrative side. So we have a supervisor, which is your teacher, your qualified teacher, and then you'll have a monitor.
But to benefit the person at home, it's the ratio
is always small. It's 12 to 1.
12 kids to 1 staff member. So
maybe
you're getting
up
a
to
lot more
15 at the worst
personalized education.
Yeah, personalized.
One-on-one.
And also what's nice about it, your teachers are, they get to know you. You don't have 200 kids coming through and you know the naughty ones and you know the good ones. Everybody in between gets lost. You make a personal relationship with each child. Each child you know, each parent you will know as well. So it becomes alive, and it becomes relational. And I think that's what we need in our country. And not only our country, in education, even amongst each other. We need relationships. One of the most important factors is relational learning. So let's call it relational learning, and I think that's important.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to know. I know we going off this different subject here. We've got in South Africa, fees must fall.
Yeah.
Currently happening at the moment, and it's a really big subject that the people are talking about. And fees must fall. It started in 2017. Zuma opened it up to give free education to those that are earning a certain amount of or less in their annual income as a parent. And with the fees must fall, one of the questions I want to find out, Pastor Wayne, just to get your thoughts on it, is what do you think? Do you think that there should be free education?
Well, that's a good question. I think that I see this fees must fall. I was looking at it and I see they say fees must fall 2.0.
Yeah, 2.0.
So it's like this.
It's like as if Zoomer went, because I mean Zoomer.
He was
it
1.0.
Yeah, he was like the one. The 1.0.
Or the 0.0. I don't know.
1.0. Now we have 2.0.
It's the
Yeah,
sequel.
Yeah, the sequel.
Yeah, he threw a hospital pass, I think, at the next president, whoever's going to be after him. He says, okay, yeah, you sort that out and I'm out of here. Yeah, I think that, it's a bit of a touchy subject, but yet it has it's valid in our country. There's merit in it. But I think that we have to be careful that if you make anything for free, without any consequence or with any accountability, you're actually taking people and saying, listen, you don't have to hassle. This is going to be for free.
Yeah.
But I also want to say that the thing is,
but with fees must fall. So with this whole thing is that the NS, it's the national
the student funding. Yeah, the funding.
What's it? NSFAS is the national student. What is it?
The NSFAS, so it's the National Student Funding Assistance or Aid.
It's some type of system.
But it's assistance. It's assistance.
So that system is that we as the public are obviously they're getting money from the tax.
Well, that's it.
That's where they're getting it from.
That's it.
And then they're funding students. And I want to know, in terms of, I've spoken to a few people that have been funded, and they're saying, well, I just asked out of curiosity to say, how's the accountability on getting funded? So they pay it straight into your account.
Wow.
Okay. And I
think I better start studying it.
But how does that affect? I mean, how does that? Because now we've got a huge debt. So obviously the students are not spending it on their education, on what they're needing. Yeah. So now they're leaving the whole system. Now the universities are under strain because there's a huge amount of debt. I think it's 13 billion rand. Where the money is now they're putting the university under the strain. And so how does that affect the infrastructure of education in South Africa? I mean, we needing to get a medical staff. We needing to get doctors. We needing to get lawyers. We needing to get accountants.
It all comes from education.
It all comes from education. Now the system is not able to teach, let alone students afford it. How do you see that play out in terms of, I mean, free education's one thing. But I think it's one big cycle. You give free education. Then they get the education, I think. And then what do they do?
And then what do they do with it? You see, that's why I say that any place is, or especially a country, is made up of a lot of systems. And in these systems, like you get your economic system, your education system, you get different systems. Now, if the one system's outcome doesn't allow anything to come into another system, like the input of another system doesn't, it blocks it because there's not enough. So, for example, we have to work from our economy back and say, listen, how many of what do we need, and is there enough in the economy? So we have to stimulate the economy to really get the money going. So then from that system, we work back to the education system, and then you can sort of give little bits of inputs at this education system. So otherwise, people are going to get frustrated, and they're going to say, "Well, I've got my degree now. What do I do with it? Or I've got my matric. What do I do with it?" So each system, like your tertiary education system, has to have an input that can accommodate people. Then that output must go into the economy to accommodate people.
So
otherwise, you just
so you get the free education. And I think in South Africa, it's a big thing at the moment where guys are getting educated and then they leave.
Exactly.
They go to another country, and it's like, and now they've been trained for free. So would you say there should be some sort of accountability where
make you work here if you get your degree?
I'm saying,
especially if you got it for free,
then you don't use your skills somewhere else. So you use them in the country.
Because now we're getting skilled people, and then they leave the country because either it's crime that they're worried about, either it's
or no opportunity.
But what if
opportunity?
Other countries pay me better?
Or they pay you better?
So what if I'm looking for a better salary? Because if you compare to what we get paid here compared to what others, a lot of them are leaving because of that. The other point I want to just go back a little bit on that. You mentioned the fund, right? That the government is giving to people and the students on one side. Isn't that in a way also a form of free education? Because instead of taking that money and giving the student, why not fund the universities with it rather? And then you can go and study because
that's a good point.
Because
that's
then that's
way.
money.
Give the university
instead of giving
the money.
Newton the money to go and pay for his own study, fund the university. Newton go, that university is funded
Well,
for you
that's
to study.
what Newton was saying
Yeah.
is because if the funds are not getting to the university, they start shutting down. And then what happens is
that's what's happening.
don't
Because
get
now the
teachers.
students got the money, and in our culture, they're not spending it
They're
on
not
money.
spending it
Just
on-
look at all the videos that are trending. Kids are doing horrible stuff with
Well,
their
this
minds.
is
So,
the thing, So we must also have a look at the whole funding. Well, look, one of the things I wanted to mention also is that they should have accountability that there mustn't be anything for free. I don't think it's right to, even if you charge 20 cents or 50 cents, because people have to get ownership. They have to
Whether
say,
you're
listen,
in South Africa or in the
whether
world,
you're anywhere,
nothing is for free.
nothing
in a
is for
sense.
free
Okay.
because somebody else is sacrificing money or they're paying for it. So something for free is not for free. There's never anything for free because somebody is funding that, or they're paying for that, or they sacrificed their life for that. Like Jesus now on the cross. I mean, he sacrificed his life so that we can get free salvation. So that's the only price that I believe is purely for free. But when it comes to this, that we also have to look down the line. What are we giving the generations to come? So the Bible says that a wise person will leave an inheritance to their generation, their children's children. So now if we just say, listen, I'm going to give everything for free, the next generation says, well, I also want everything for free. So who's going to actually start the ball rolling to pay something in? So I believe that even if a university student pays 100 Rand a month, that 100 Rand a month can now fund somebody in the primary school or the high school. Then the primary school pays 10 Rand a month, and then can fund somebody in the creche. You know what I mean? So
that's
so
why I
believe
say fund the
but
university.
fund something,
in
you
all
know,
of
in
this,
proportion. It must be a sliding scale. Yeah.
How does the poor handle this? Because they have no say in terms of what they give. They literally disadvantaged from the word go.
Go, yeah.
It's like now they're sitting saying, well, they can't even afford, the universities can't, the fund can't support anyone that's wanting to start university.
Yes.
How does that affect the poor in terms of their thinking, the way they go? You know what I'm saying?
It's a catch-22 in one way.
Yeah.
But I think that if people can't give money, we can say to them, look, but there must be criteria. You know, you can't just go to university because it's for free. You know, there must be the criteria for entrance requirements, which I'm sure that's what you do have.
Yes.
But also more than the criteria, we have to say, hold the people accountable to later on that they will pay back in a way. Even if they work at the varsity on certain weekends to pay something back, you know, just do something, you know, clean rooms and or you know, clean the library or pack it again or dust it off, I don't know. But just somebody must feel like I've got ownership. I'm also part of this, because it doesn't help to stand alone. But as you say, the poor is a concern, because that is our biggest hassle. Just
in South
across
Africa
the board.
alone, or
In South Africa specifically, look, all over the world there is that problem, but then the ratios are maybe different. South Africa is one of those countries that have got the biggest the gap between the rich and the poor. It's amazing. It's actually very it's quite something. But I also do believe that there's been a lot of leaks of money that goes sideways. And I think
if we could fix that,
think if we could fix some of the leaks
off the record, I mean,
off the record, whatever those leaks are, we're not gonna go
Pastor
there.
Wayne, off the record,
off the record.
Do you think that this fees must fall was a political event?
Well, let me tell you that what's interesting, that there was a study that was done at a while back, that somebody came over, these guys came over from Europe, and they said that South Africa's problem in the education system is it's over politicized. They use education as obviously a springboard and a little bit of a kicking ball. And then the other one is unionized. So the unions climb in where they can, and they also get brownie points. And then the other one is that it's very diverse. So you've got 11 official languages. You've got people from all over. So it's not a country that's got just you know, we take a lot of from these countries, like ministers go overseas and they say, oh no, this country's doing well, but then they only speak English or whatever they speak. They only got one type of person, and the politics is very low key, and there's no unions, so they can have this
many
awesome.
factors.
So we're fighting many factors,
That's
and
the
everybody's
other thing.
using it as a springboard or a soccer ball.
That's
So
the other thing that I always wanted to
I
ask.
agree,
In terms of the different languages, why learn a language that you're not it's not your primary speaking language? Because it seems like they want,
that's
it's
another
not
good
my
point.
primary communication language, but I have to know it academically. And
Yeah,
when I
I
don't
agree.
become good at that,
Yeah.
I think that's where some of the problem is. So with my child, she's wanting to learn a different language, and I ask her, but why? She said, well, because my mom speaks this language, but I don't know how to speak. Well, I'm going to use Afrikaans because that's always the sole point of.
Yeah,
She doesn't know, so she said, "I'll never use Afrikaans ever after I'm done with school in some way."
So
but
why is it still in the system?
Why is it still? Why do I have to learn that and
Exactly.
not learn? So why can't we just focus on one language where we know most? South Africa is now mostly going to English, sort of like.
Well,
why-
look, it's a good point
yeah.
because there's some countries that have got 50 languages.
Yeah.
Like, some of the Indian countries, or not some of the Indian, like the Asian countries,
Yeah.
they've got like lots of dialects and different things. So they just come to the point of saying, listen, that's the main language. And because otherwise it's difficult to please everybody. And I agree with you. We should basically say, look, the language of learning is this in whichever area, let's say mainly English.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those that is used internationally and also at tertiary level. And then I believe that we should learn other languages as communicatable languages. So I should be able to communicate with you or anybody.
True,
But
not on
are
academic
but not
level.
on an academic. I don't have to learn how to write a poem or analyze some poem.
And all of that,
in
yeah.
any language, actually.
Because then
but
we
at
might
least
as well do
you and
that
I
for
can-
all the languages, all
Yeah.
official languages in our country. Because
That's
now
it.
we're only picking two. And I know
Yeah.
the riff there with most people is, why must it be Afrikaans? Because I'm not Afrikaans.
Yeah. Well, look,
And-
you can.
yeah.
All schooling systems can use. It's called the first additional language.
Yeah.
And it is compulsory. That's how our system has worked it.
Yeah.
Which I believe that they should re-look at that.
Yeah.
But they can choose any of the other 10 languages as the first additional. The problem is they're not developed
Yeah.
enough to use. So everybody just sticks with Afrikaans.
So we just stick with
But-
one language.
But then
then.
we you know what I mean? It's not a clever move because I could rather put that money or that effort into some math
Yeah.
and science because we're finding that our math is of the worst in the world. But like I think there was a test that we came 43rd out of 50 countries and 45th in science.
Yeah.
So I would say, listen, let's do away with that. Let's put some more effort into technical. And
Practical.
other practical subjects. One of the things about South Africa, we are a very practical nation. I mean, you can leave guys and they'll make something. You see the guys with their newspaper, the dustbin guys, and they collect these bottles. And one thing I must say, South Africa is a hands-on country. They'll make a plan.
Yeah.
And they'll make something of nothing. So we need to lift up the hand skills. I believe skills in our country is really we need to teach people skills. Building and
going on that,
mechanics.
Pastor Wayne.
Yeah.
You know, as a parent,
Yeah.
looking at South African education for my young boy.
Yes.
So, in terms of positive, is there something positive in the educational system in South Africa? What is the positives that I can look at to say, wow, that's really cool. That's now something to say or lean on as a young dad,
I think, you got a good point. There are positives. I don't think our system
a lot of people go away to overseas, and they come back and they say, yo, it's so good to be home.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
something with that must be in the educational system.
Yes, I think that there is a certain amount of freedom in our educational system. For example, like we said earlier, you can have religious freedom
Yeah.
in
I
specifically
think that's a
private
big
schools.
one.
Yeah, private
That's
schools.
a big one. I
Specifically
think.
private schools. Yeah.
I mean, most of the public schools that I know of have
they still.
still using Christian
Yeah.
principles. They having devotions before school, and
Yeah.
I think that's a
still
real
rooted.
positive which you're
true.
speaking about there. I think when you're going to maybe like a European country, I think
no, it's
they've taken
very-
it out.
yeah.
It's quite rough. You don't even put out
Look,
your
in
Bible,
South Africa, they haven't got to that point. Although constitutionally, you shouldn't be like praying in a secular school. But
Yes.
but I mean, all the old, let's call it the old staff and the roots of South Africa is very much still embedded in Christianity. So that
So-
comes out.
Are you saying when you said that we can't pray in a circular school, then why give the rule to say there's freedom of religion, but I can't exercise it in schools?
Well, you see, constitutionally there is freedom
Yeah.
of religion, but then when it comes to private schooling can practice their ethos,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. Now, a lot of places they don't care if you're private or public.
You're not allowed to
not
exercise.
to
So isn't that
exercise
a way of taking away my rights then? Because you're saying I have freedom of religion, but I just can't do it at this place.
Well, you see, that is the problem.
Yeah.
You see, that's why it can get messy. But South
Yeah.
Africa hasn't pushed it yet to really just like kill it totally.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a blind eye turn in certain cases. There are cases that where one parent gets upset and takes the school to court because now there was a big case a while back where they said Christianity shouldn't be, or the Bible shouldn't even be in a school, a public school specifically.
Sure.
But I mean, I think there is so much influence still within the nation, amongst all people, that there is a Christian ethos in our nation. I think that is a saving grace. But I think that South Africa still got a major positive way forward. There's still so much to give and so much to get in South Africa. And I believe even this diversity between the nations and the people is like starting to come together. People are finding common ground. We're loving one another, not because of color.
We're striking together.
We strike together. Fees must fall for all of us. And what's nice is that the Rainbow Nation, as they so call us, is really, the colors are complementing each other. And I think that this generation, I mean, it's 20, so many years already? It's 27 or so years. Actually, it's interesting. It's 1993. I've done my maths on 1994 until now.
Did you pass grade 12?
No, I did actually pass grade 12, but how I did it is I did grade 6 twice. So they just added up grade 6 plus 6 and they made it a 12. So that's how I got it. And then the best 3 years, you know what? The best 3 years of my life was grade 10.
Future of education.
I spent 3 years in grade 10. So it was my best time. It was my best time of school. It's just 3 years in grade 10.
Okay.
And then even my one report, I remember my dad. He got the report. He opened it and there's a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
So he said, "Come, please explain what's going on here." So I said, "Oh no, that the teacher ran out of stars, so she just gave me a lot of moons." Still got her hiding anyway. That was our vaccine. The vaccine for the COVID virus. Those days was just a good hiding, and it's like, okay, now I'm fine again.
You cured.
Yeah, that's it.
So, future of education. Are you thinking that in the next couple of years we might see homeschooling becoming the primary way of schooling?
I think we'll see homeschooling increase. It's already statistics have said that especially in our ACE system, which is modularized and well packaged, and also we've got an online system called Comprehend Africa, which got an online platform. So we actually do our paces or our modules are actually online, so the guys can actually work on computer, do their work online
at their own pace.
At their own pace, exactly the same. So there's actually a mirror of virtually the PACE system online. So I think that's the type of development that is coming into play. The thing is, in South Africa, they've not allowed something what we know as or what the world knows as a cottage school. Now, cottage school is not allowed in South Africa. You either get a homeschool or you get an independent school. That's it. Or obviously a public school. But then what happens is a cottage school is where somebody just wants 12 or 15 people in a small cottage or a house. And or a favorable place for education, and then they can have an educational institution and register it as well. But we don't allow that. But I think this could open up for those type of schools in a more legal way because as you say, parents have to go to work. But if you've got somebody like the old lady that looks after the little creche down the road, she's only got 15 or 20 people. That's great because that's what you want. You can put your child in a smaller environment. So I'm hoping that in the future they open up to smaller institutions, so you can take your child there. They can still carry on with the online type schooling and more specialized. Because big schools they don't accommodate every for the individual. They don't accommodate everything. Especially the big public schools, they have to just say, "Listen, we're all going for it. Get on the ship and
whether
we go."
1 + 1, we don't
or
care.
not. And I can tell you, 2020, if I had to go and test the children now that was passed in 2020, that's through all the grades.
Yeah.
Let's face it, they never, like you were saying, they didn't have data. A lot of them, a majority didn't have.
Yeah.
Now they all passed. The reason why they passed is because they can't stay behind, because there's there's a 1.5 million
So they just
children
got
coming into
shifted
grade
through.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to shift it up, because if you don't, you can't have 1.5 holding back and 1.5 coming in, and your grade 1 class goes from 40 to 80.
Yeah.
You see, so basically they just keep this thing moving. But if you had to measure them now, you'll find that a lot of children have lost last year's grade,
Speaking
whatever their
of
grade was.
education, the positive part is always, when they mention the pass rate, the matric pass rate.
That's another
But I always wonder, shouldn't we then factor it with, like you said, 1.5 million grade ones, because 12 years later, have they all made it to
500,000.
matric?
Yeah.
Or it's only 500,000, then
They
you
did.
take that 500, then you divide, and then you say, here's your 80%. But if you take that percentage and then you
Goes down
divide
to
it by the 1.5 million,
Yeah.
the pass rate would probably be like
The
20%.
Yeah, for 20-40%. Yeah,
Exactly.
So, yeah, but it does, and that's the problem. Is our throughput rate is not always good, because you can have general education up to grade 9, 10. You can even push to 11,
Yeah.
and then suddenly all these matrics disappear. They actually say that of that 1.5 million, let's call it of 12 years ago,
Yeah.
when they get to grade 10, there's still quite a lot on board. But suddenly grade 11, they disappear because they can't get to that national exam. They know that you can pass anybody up to grade 11.
Sure.
But when that national exam comes, you can't, as they call it, jippo it, or cover up for it. And then all these kids all disappear. They call them
Wow.
dropouts. They all drop out the system. So suddenly you go from 1 million down to 500,000, 600,000.
Yeah.
But even then, even when they get the pass rate, you have to look at the quality of the pass rate, because I can also get everybody to pass, but they still got a very low. They can't even get into university. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I just an interesting scripture. I think while we're on the topic
Yeah.
of education, is it's Proverbs 16 verse 16. It says that having wisdom and understanding is better than having silver or gold. And so I thought
Wow.
that's quite a cool. That you get a statement from Nelson Mandela, and then you get a scripture verse, and it's
Yeah.
God wanted us to be educated. He wanted us to have knowledge, and
To
so
have
it's
knowledge,
such
yeah.
a critical topic, and it's
It
such
is
a critical. Education is so critical in today's time,
Yeah.
and but I really believe that South Africa are moving in the there's positives,
Yes.
and they're moving in the
yes.
right direction,
Yeah.
and I think it's almost like
Yeah.
they've been forced to with the
COVID
coronavirus.
has definitely done
Has
it. Yeah.
forced it, and I'm excited for the future
Yeah.
of South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and it's interesting that scripture as well. And a lot of people, when you take wisdom and you speak about wisdom, what is wisdom? And the Bible does start speaking about its understanding, but it's actually made up of knowledge and understanding. Because you can get these guys that have got 20
Yeah.
degrees. When
Yeah.
they walk into a room, it actually warms up the room. They got so many
Yeah.
degrees. So it's like, wow, stand around that guy in winter and you won't get cold.
Yeah.
But what it is that you need to have knowledge, but you have to have understanding with that knowledge.
Yeah.
And with that
That would be like your
understanding,
practical.
that
Yeah.
understanding and experience,
Experience.
and making that knowledge come alive is actually what gives you wisdom.
Yeah.
So otherwise, there's a lot of guys that got knowledge but no wisdom.
Yeah.
They actually cause more trouble than anything else. So it's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it was a great topic to talk about, and you've been listening to LWC
Yeah.
Radio,
Yeah.
Wonderful, man.
Mac, the number one church.
The number one radio
show.
station. Yeah, it is.
Is it?
The
Yes,
church
it
channel,
is.
the number one. Yeah, it's the number one.
If you
channel.
disagree, show me proof that there's another one.
Well, I can
Yep.
say that, and then I can go, and then nobody will know.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't hold me. Okay, you guys.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
It's also record, and
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you.
great having you. Thanks for watching. We
Yeah,
can't wait to
thanks.
see you next week. Don't forget to hit the subscribe
Yes,
button.
smash that subscribe button and the like button.